When the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest came out 50 years ago, a lot of people didn't realize the impact that it would have on public policy, on our politics, and on the disability rights movement in the United States, but boy did it, and our next guest knows a good deal about that. Please welcome Dr. Stephen Noll, who at the University of Florida teaches courses on the history of disability, has written books on the subject as well, and has scored as one of the best professors in America by Princeton Review. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
So the premise of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, if people are not familiar with the film, is that a convict portrayed by Jack Nicholson feigns mental illness to try to get out of a penal work farm, winds up in a mental institution that is far worse than that penal work farm would have been. And while it was fictional, it included real life, and I'm going to say in quotes, treatments that included lobotomies. Why would they do such a thing?
For two reasons: assumptions that lobotomy is helpful, and certainly the man who invents lobotomy, and Egon Moniz, a Portuguese physician, wins the Nobel Prize in medicine. But the other reason is also that it calms people down, and certainly when there's possibility of people being problematic on the wards in the institution, lobotomy will make the life easier for staff. So it's both about control within and about an assumed cure outside.
And control, you're damaging people's brains. Barbaric in hindsight.
Yes. But the assumption is, we've got to do something to ameliorate the ills on the ward, and if we have to do that, we'll do that. And barbaric, yes, by our standards, and even by those standards, but have to do it.
And electroshock treatments too. What purpose could that possibly serve?
Electroshock, or ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, is designed, again, to deal with different parts of the brain that aren't functioning appropriately, and the electroconvulsive therapy will allow that to calm you down and make you a more amenable patient. It is at some point done with good intentions, to try and help people, but certainly the cure is much worse than the disease itself.
And in hindsight, we see the folly of that, and people are just aghast by what they see in the movie.
Right. Yes, the movie shocks people, I think, in a whole variety of situations, not just the therapeutic interventions that are there, but just the daily life on the ward, that these people are warehoused there with the assumption that they're in there to get cured. And the movie tells us that they are in there to be warehoused.
So then what did the commercial and critical success of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest change?
I think it put a viewing on what was happening in the institution. And the deinstitutionalization movement had already started pretty much with the book in the 60s, pretty much also with the development of psychotropic drugs as alternatives to lobotomy and ECT. But the movie really took it out of kind of the margins of academia and the margins of people with disabilities and their advocates, and put it into the mainstream. That everyday people who go to the movie say, oh my God, I didn't know this happening. We've got to stop this. Why is this happening? And
it preceded 1977, 2 years later, a significant movement for disability rights.
Yes, 2 years later, the disability rights movement pushed to get Section 504 of the Voc Rehab Bill enacted, and it said that you cannot discriminate against people on the basis of their disability, basically tying in exactly what happened with the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Disability rights activists take to the streets and take over federal buildings and demand that President Carter sign the legislation, and eventually does, because of the activities of these people with disabilities, and certainly their public persona and the public awareness of what's going on has been associated with the movie itself, I think.
And it also preceded the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yes, the Americans with Disabilities Act is 1990, yes. People with disabilities engage in what's called the Capitol crawl, in which they get out of their wheelchairs and they crawl up the steps of the United States Capitol, saying, we cannot even advocate for this bill because we can't even get into the Capitol. And certainly that shocking image, really brought the bill, I think, to fruition. And again, it's tied into the movie, I think.
A lot of people will say 1975, that wasn't that long ago. How in the world could we have been that inhumane? Looking ahead 50 years from now, do you think people will look back at today and say, my goodness, how could we have been that inhumane?
I think that there are issues today that deal with this. I think particularly regarding maybe homeless people, and because many, as deinstitutionalization takes place, we don't come forth with plans and programs to do something with these people. So when you look at like our jails today, significant proportion of those people are people with mental illness. When you look at even nursing homes, a significant proportion. And when you look at homeless people, a significant proportion of those people have serious mental issues.
Dr. Stephen Noll, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Happy to be here.